I'm Dean Newland, and welcome to Leadovation. Reimagine, facilitate, flourish. This podcast is dedicated to the art and science of innovative leadership. Through insightful interviews with industry experts, I bring you cutting-edge strategies and experiences of innovative leadership, helping you think differently, act strategically, and achieve remarkable results. Join me as I provide insights and tools that empower you to make smarter decisions, forge meaningful relationships. Welcome to Leadovation. Well, after a lot of thought, procrastination, I'm here to finally say, yes, indeed, I am in the process of writing a book. It's going to be called Leadovation. I don't know when it's going to be ready, but today was my second call with my coach, if you will, that's helping me figure out exactly what I'm saying. And it's exciting. I can't wait. So this is the first time I'm making this announcement. And I bring that up for the sole purpose of the next guest on the business of intuition, which I've been procrastinating on this thing for a long time. I remember my very first seminar that I did back in 1992 was called Discover Your Life's Purpose. And somebody came up to me and said, you should write a book on that particular topic. And I thought, what? That doesn't seem that interesting. You know, I kind of had some impostor syndrome going. I felt like, why would that be of interest to anybody? How could I possibly add any value to anybody's life? There's just so many people out there talking about this subject. And so I've been saying that for, 30 years now. And I'm finally getting over myself to be able to put pen to paper, so to speak, to be able to put my point of view on this topic of leadership and innovation. So my next guest is really all about personal branding. And we had this great conversation about why people are so reticent to personal branding. And it is the same reason that I was reticent. I just felt like maybe I was not unique enough, or I didn't have a clean enough voice, or that nobody would really want to listen to it or think about what I was saying. And I realized over many months and years that, yes, I do have something to say and it is valuable. And I'm now very clear about wanting to get that out to people. But when it comes to personal branding, I think it does sometimes evoke feelings of imposter syndrome, as if promoting an untrue narrative to deceive others was really the whole purpose, and that it could feel like being a manipulative politician. However, I do believe that when done authentically, a clear personal brand can effectively communicate what a leader stands for and how they add value to others' lives. And this is for the small business owner, or this is for a CEO or an SLT member or a senior leadership team member of a large company, whereby the personal branding clarity that can take place with those two different types of people can not only be beneficial for the individual, certainly the audience, but it can be a very strong strategy for growing a business, whether that business be small, medium, or large. And so my next guest on the business of intuition really has some great experience around scaling businesses by being able to develop strong personal brands. Her name is Laura Bull, and she is CEO and best-selling author and brand strategist who specializes in transforming personal brands into competitive and sustainable business brands. Early on in her career, Laura spent 10 years with Sony Music Entertainment, becoming one of the company's youngest executives at the ripe old age of just 28. During her tenure, she spearheaded artist development and marketing for globally recognized brands, including Carrie Underwood, Brad Paisley, and Johnny Cash, among many, many other artists from RCA, Columbia, Epic, and Monument Records. A veteran of the music industry, she has served for more than a decade on the National Advisory Board for Musicians on Call. She's also got a really cool book that I can't help get sent to me about this very process around personal branding and how it can help scale a business. There's a lot of practical information there. And I do believe that in our company, we're going to be using that. So my next guest is Laura Bull on the business of intuition. So Laura, it's great to have you on the show. Thank you for joining us from what mostly is probably a pretty hot Dallas, Texas now.
Yeah, it's actually already summer heat here.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry for that, but It is a great town. I've only been there a few times, not a lot. I do know the heat though, because we spent a lot of time down in Phoenix, Arizona, where we just came from, and it was already in the hundreds. So, we're there. We're
I think it's
there.
98 today. So yeah, feeling it.
However, we have a dry heat. You have a humid
Yeah.
heat.
This is a humid heat. That is the
Yes.
difference.
So I think this show is going live on your birthday. So happy birthday.
Thank you.
Which also calls to my son, Taylor. Happy birthday, son. It's also the same date, I understand, July 9th. So happy birthday. I know that you've got obviously a lot we can dive into when it comes to branding and marketing and so forth. But, if I'm a small business owner, let's just take that particular tack. I think a lot of people think a lot about like, hey, if I do really good work and if I serve my clients well, the work speaks for itself. The results are the brand. Why do I need to spend time and money branding me as the owner? Who gives a rat's fill in the blank? Because I'm a little shy. I don't really want to be in the spotlight. It's not really about me. It's about my customer. It's about the people I serve. It's about my team. Why should I brand me?
I mean, I think it's a trust factor, honestly. Trust breeds loyalty. Trust breeds, authenticity breeds trust. So if you don't have an authentic story that is going to factor into the business, then people will be less inclined to give you a chance. So regardless of what those testimonials are, but what those testimonials are, honestly, is speaking to how the company is run. And that ultimately is from the CEO, right? So you're hoping that your values of the company and everything is going to be aligned with how that consumer experience is, right?
Right.
But if you can have a clear message as a personal brand outside of the business, you will be able to network better. You will be able to get more clients. You'll be able to client retention better. They'll know what they are getting when they come to you, right? So that is consumer, awareness, I guess. I'm drawing a blank on what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, well, I think I get your point, though, that the branding actually creates that authenticity, creates an opening for people to do business with you.
Right.
It clarifies your story, your message. We're not confused about what you're about. If your brand is unknown, then we don't know about your company either.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Why should we care about you if you don't even know how to articulate what you're about? It goes back to Simon Sinek's work on the power of why. Like,
it's
if you don't know why you do what you do, why would anybody else? Yeah.
Why are you doing this business? Why are you the head of this company specifically? Why are you founding this project, right? All of those factor in to what your story is, and hopefully will trickle down to what the business story is.
I'm wondering, I'm thinking here that for many people years ago, I think, including myself, branding seemed to expose the impostor syndrome, that I don't want to be out in front of people because what if they find out about the real me? Or what if what I'm presenting is not real? And so I feel squeamish about that. Or, the number one fear for a lot of people is public speaking. Oh my God, branding. Is that going to mean that I'm going to have to be in front of a group of people? Holy crap. I don't want to do that. Run to the hills.
Okay. So the first thing is that you do that. It is essential in business today for somebody to be the face of the business, whatever that is. And usually that is the owner, right? My job is to help provide confidence for that person, in the sense of, we do dissect the narrative, the good, bad, and the ugly, right? What is that? What does it look like? There's a difference between a private narrative and a public narrative, first off. So we focus on really defining what that public narrative is. But the more real you are with your audience, even if it's like, you should never be presenting something that is not real, right? That is a big red flag, because it will be found out, and you will feel awkward, and you will worry, and you will avoid, like avoidance to the max, right? Any type of publicity opportunity or anything. And so my job is to help people really figure out what the realness is that will connect to that target audience, right? And for instance, I was working with a CEO who was concerned about her upbringing. It was not a bootstrap upbringing. It was a family of CEOs, right? But she's definitely worked her way up. She's worked in different industries. She's done all of these things. And it's like, you got to lean into that, because if you don't, and it's found out that you've had a privileged life, then that's worse. That's a worse hit to your reputation, right? And branding is about reputation. So the other thing is, public speaking is not necessarily needed for personal branding, and neither is social media. So a lot of people are freaked out about social media. That's just one communication channel. There are many, many communication channels that you can utilize to establish your personal brand.
So that's a great way of unpacking this, because I do think I'm sort of feeding you some softballs so you can hit them out of the park, because I agree with you 100%. But I do hear but those questions about the imposter syndrome, do I have to be a public speaker? Are there times when the brand of the owner, let's say it's the owner of the company, really should not be the face of the company?
Yes.
Like, gosh, this person, male, female, whoever it was, started this darn thing, really good at behind the scenes, but their personal brand, if we really to spend time on it, what might actually do damage to the company. Who knows why? Maybe they're just really, they don't do well. I don't know. They just don't have a good brand. I don't know. Maybe there's some history. I mean, who knows what it is? Maybe there's some things that they've done or said. But is there ever the time when we'd say, you know what? Sorry, Mr. or Mrs. CEO, but you should not probably be the face of the company. How do you deal with that? And how do you know?
Well, and, personal branding is this, first, I've been personal branding since before it was called personal branding, because I started working in the music industry with global names, household names. And I won't even tell you when, but it's been decades. So
I don't think so. You probably your birthday that is today. You probably, I can say things like you probably just turned 25, right?
Yeah, definitely not.
Let's just say that. Yeah.
I was at Sony when I was that young and adorable and cute. But no, so the personal branding, I still feel like a CEO or a founder, even if they're not the face of the company or the spokesperson for the company, they should still have a personal brand built out. That is still going to tell everybody who they work with what that brand looks like. So they don't necessarily need brand guidelines or anything, but they do need a clear narrative and bio, talking points, etc. They can just do, interviews offline. They don't need to be doing video interviews necessarily. But if somebody is really adverse to media training and how to focus the narrative in the appropriate way at the appropriate time, I think that's when you kind of need a spokesperson to step in.
Fair enough. Okay. So let's assume that you and I are working. I hire you.
Okay.
Right. You're going to help me with my personal brand. What would that look like? What questions would you ask? How does that, what are the mechanics?
Yeah, there's a lot. So we go through a three-phase process in brand development. And the first phase is deeply rooted in positive psychology. And this is one of the areas of my master's degree. So we focus a lot on, so the first phase is an audit. And in that audit, we get a questionnaire. So we always create a brand internally before we look externally, right? So we only glance to competition in order to see where we are in the marketplace and make sure we're competitive, but we do not look to the competition to create our brand, right? So the first phase is a very customized and elaborate questionnaire. And when I tell you it's elaborate, I am not kidding. I ask everything from 20 years ago and 20 years in the future. I want to know where you've been to where you think you're going to be 20 years, because marketing is what you want to stay for the next 20 days, but branding is what you want to stay for the next 20 years. And with that, you really need to develop a brand, not based off of the now, but the full package, right? So I've literally been able to guess what kind of car one of my clients drove based off of how detailed I get in this questionnaire. At the same time,
that gets a little creepy.
yes, I know. I emailed her, and the funny thing is she's a celebrity, and but I've never seen. I mean, I have never seen any pictures or anything where I would know this answer, but I guess the right car. But it's also been developed over 10 years of working with people, right? So I've been able to ask more and more questions. And really what I tell people is if you think I want a sentence, I want a paragraph. If you think I want a paragraph, I want a page. Because I'm not going to create your brand. You are literally telling me everything I need to know about your brand. And I'm just helping you condense it into a Nike swoosh. Like that's what I'm doing. So we do the internal audit at the same time as an external audit. We look in the marketplace. What have you already been doing out there? What does that look like? What press is out there? Websites, products, services, etc. Then we go into the brand strategy phase. It's about a 20 to 30, well, it's about 30-page report that jumps into all the brand stuff, brand purpose, brand pillars, brand positioning, lots of data there, competition, research, brand statement. And then we basically, at the end of all that, that's a lot. And then we go into brand recommendations. And this is what we say or we recommend in order to level up the brand. So this is where the brand is now. And this is where you're telling us it should be and where we think it should be based off of the competition. So what does that look like under image? What does that look like under narrative? And what does that look like under product and service? Those three main elements of the brand, right? And then in our final phase, the implementation phase, is when we actually go in and do all those recommendations. We recreate brand guidelines, do photo shoots, video shoots, rewrite all the narratives, including updating copy on websites or creating new taglines. And then product and service is across the board completely different, so it could be anything from developing a book to have published or fixing the lid of a ice cream jar. Like literally, it can be anything that needs to be dealt with to update that narrative. So it takes about 3 to 5 months, depending on the client.
And do most clients then work with you through the execution or the implementation phase, like
Yes.
the management of the brand?
Yes. So it depends on the size of the company that I'm working with. Like if they have their own internal teams to handle all of those, graphic updates and things like that. But typically, yes, I am responsible for everything.
So if a person were to listen to this and say, gosh, Laura, this is great. Happy birthday, but I'm not going to do this right now. But are there 3 things that maybe they should ask themselves to get them off the dime? Like, okay, get them past those misconceptions or help them identify something that is a narrative or a service or a product or an image that they should be, focusing in on, not the whole kit and caboodle, but get us going.
If I guess the biggest red flag when people come to me like, I don't know if I need you or not, is if you are at all hesitant or confused about what your message is. That is 90% of my clients. That's it. If you are not 100% clear on your message and what you are projecting out into the marketplace and who you're projecting it to, then you're going to have image. You're going to have product service issues. You're going to have all of these things creep in that are not clear and concise. So I would start with that question. And the other thing is it's a lot of different steps. So I actually have a free brand checklist on my website, which is the brand mgmt.com. And that's available for download. And you can just go through, and most of the steps are the steps I take through with my clients in that first phase. What exactly you need to know and when you need to know it. And then the other thing is honestly my book. It's a complete breakdown. And the way that I wrote the book it's called From Individual to Empire, a guide to building an authentic and powerful brand. But the way that it's written is in 3 parts. The first part, and it's basically how I take my clients, right? So that's the positive psychology part, the strategy part, and then the evolution part. And each chapter ends with action steps. What's next? My homage to Aaron Sorkin in The West Wing. What's next? And you actually have exercises to complete, and you can also go to the website and print out the workbook to sit there and scratch all over it and everything. So even if you get the audiobook, you can still do all the exercises and stuff yourself.
But of course, most people are going to say, I don't really want to do this myself. I think when I hire you.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, then you gotta.
that would be the hope, I'm sure, from your perspective as well. I'm sure.
Yeah. Come my way. We'll talk.
I think a lot of going back to this imposter syndrome thing. It sounds like another way of putting this is that, oh come on, I'm just not that unique. Oh my God. I mean, like I've heard this, and I am of the same. I find myself sometimes in the past saying the same thing. I've said that before. Like, oh, you got to be kidding me. There's so many flipping people in the world that do what I do.
So
are you kidding me? I mean, like, I remember the very first day that Facebook, I hopped on Facebook. I was actually in Germany and we were like waiting for our client, to show up. And so I'm just sitting around my colleague who is a tech guy who said, hey, have you been on Facebook yet? I go, no, what is Facebook? Right. This is a long time ago.
I
hop on Facebook. He goes, well, this is how you set it up. And I go, and my first post was, hi, I'm on Facebook. I doubt anybody cares.
Yeah.
That was my first post. And then he responds back to me. He goes, Dean, I care. And I'm thinking like, who gives a shit what I'm about? Right. That's my point at the time.
Yeah.
So expert in the field of branding, how do you counter a perspective like that?
So funny you should ask. So I have a brand matrix is what I call it. And it's a Venn diagram. And this is laid out in the book. And basically it figures out what that uniqueness is because everybody has it. It's image, narrative, and product service, right? And everything in the center of that is what your brand pillar should be. So what does that mean? If I am trying to get you to say, okay, if I can't remember the name and I don't have Google handy, if I can't remember the name of this musician, she's a powerhouse vocalist. What is her name? Right? You haven't, it could be anybody. It could be Mariah.
It could be many number of people. Beyonce. It could be like Jennifer Howlett. Yeah, right.
Now, if I say, oh, well, she's got this British mod thing about her. She's, British and she's mod. Who do you think of?
I don't know.
Adele.
Adele. Okay, got it. Yeah.
So the key, everybody has a uniqueness, but the key is to find that unique matrix, right? It can't just be a powerhouse vocalist. What are the 4 to 5 brand pillars that are going to, as a group, always as a group, set you aside when it comes to image, narrative, and the product and the service that you're providing? That's what's unique.
Right. I actually think that this is I'm personally getting some benefit out of this because I've struggled with this. This has been my world because we finally have taken the leap and we're just right after this call. I'm going to have my second phone call with my book coach, to help me get my book going. Right. And we're going to talk about a lot of stuff, but I've had this business now for 32 years. And somebody approached me in the very beginning. I remember it way back. And somebody says, you want to write a book? Because I was doing a workshop called Discover Your Life Purpose. It was the very first workshop I ever did. They said, oh, this is a really great topic. You should actually do a book on it. I went like, oh, come on. For the same reason that you just said, how can I, that can't be that unique. Of course it was unique, it was, or at least it was my point of view on it, if nothing else.
It's your point of view. It's your experiences. It's your life. So one of the chapters in my book is, I don't know if you know who Sean Achor is. He's got a really popular TED talk, and he's a best-selling author of The Happiness Advantage.
Okay.
And so, like I said, a lot of my work is grounded in that purpose. It's one of the 5 core elements that you have to have before you even go into figuring out what the brand pillars are. Purpose, passion, and understanding the difference between the two. But we also have, how do you figure out power? How do you figure out positivity? All of these things have to be factored in before you even start the branding process, right?
It's interesting.
It's really hard for people in any industry, in any walk of life, in any any most creative entrepreneurs, it is very hard to self-brand.
Right.
And that is across the board. I mean, that's a typical normal issue. So hopefully this book makes it easier because it's all workshops. You know what I mean? It's all like worksheets and stuff like that. But I also tie it up in a pretty bow because it's entertaining. It's all pop culture references. I mean, my background is in the music industry. So it's, you know, I use a lot of like the Adele example. And so anyways.
I'm assuming what would happen through this process with you is that you would almost shed light on dormant things that a individual may not necessarily own that are there.
That's true. I've never had somebody without an aha moment. And it's funny because it's always, they give it to me, right? They're giving it to me or I wouldn't know it.
Right.
It's how I'm presenting it back to them as a nice little package that they're like, oh my gosh, I had a client cry, a very successful celebrity client who has had a decades-long career, millions of followers, cry because it's like she finally was heard. Like she was like, finally, this is what I've been trying to say for so long, but I've said it here and here and here, and I've never been able to just say it like this, you know? I mean, that's the goal is that.
Well, great coaching does that. You know, if we really are honest about it, what we're trying to do is see into the other person what they may not see themselves.
That's right.
But that's there and name it and call it out. And to your point, while we aren't necessarily branding experts, some of the things I'm sure that we do in our company and other coaches out there as well follow a similar sort of process. You know, it's bringing to life that what is already there that others don't necessarily see. I was thinking about the movie A Star is Born, you know, the most recent version and the one before that, like that main character, she didn't know that she was a big deal.
Yeah.
You know, until the Bradley Cooper said, come on out on stage with me and sing. And all of a sudden, you know, she brought to life, or he helped her bring to life that dormant brand.
Right.
That we all have, but we don't see it. And I can see that would be a transformative process.
It is I always use the term transform a person into a brand name because it is transformation. And what we do too is we do that transformative process at the beginning, and then we put it into a business context, right? So what does that look like with revenue streams? What does that look like in the marketplace? How do you market this, right? Because marketing is after you do the branding. You're only wasting money if you're doing marketing while you're doing the branding, right? What is that book title? How is the book structured, right? If you're working on a book right now, you'd get that. Like, how do you structure the book to represent this brand? Is it conversational tone? What is the voice? Like all of that. We give the brand identity as part of our brand report. What does that look like from a voice tone aspect? What does it look like from a visual aspect? I mean, it's all in there. Yeah.
That's fantastic. And so do you have any particular stories you can share of a person without naming names, unless it's okay to do so, of where they were coming into the beginning of this process, some of those concerns that they had, and to where they ended up?
I mean, I got a lot of NDAs, so
I get that.
Pretty much if it's in the book, it's safe. I had legal come through that a few times.
Yeah, I bet.
I don't know. I mean, there's so many different anecdotal stories that I could share about, but specific elements, right? Like why do Disney stars have such a hard time transitioning into their own entities? Well, it's because of transference and the fact that they are a Disney brand and not their own brand until after the fact. And so it's a full rebrand. I mean, there's so many different things. I'll stay away from politics, although I do share some of those examples in the book. Taylor Swift versus Kanye, you know, when they exploded on the stage at the VMAs and one goes away crying and one is like rude to everybody. Like it just accelerated both of their brands because they doubled down on who they were as people, and that target audience loved them even more, right? So they both walked away winners from that situation. So it's just, you know, I guess you would have to give me a specific example and I could I could, or specific.
No, I get that. So I'm also gathering that there may be a time in a person's career where they need to rebrand, meaning the brand that they had earlier in their life now has to change. What are the telltale signs that we're ready for a rebrand?
New launches or new products. Like if somebody has gone down a path to create something that is a little askewed from what they were typically known for, then it's time to jump in there and just make sure that the brand evolves correctly, right? You want to get in there earlier than later every time, because if something on the narrative changes, like think about the Venn diagram. If something on the image changes drastically, then okay, certain aspects still may be true in the middle. So let's fix that before the whole wheel gets off out of kilter, right?
Right.
Because if 3 of these things change and only 2 pillars remain, let's say, then that's a full rebrand. And rebrands, as you know, are scary, timely, costly. So you want to try to avoid a rebrand at all costs.
Understood. Okay. Good advice there. Are you finding that there's a younger people are more adept at thinking of themselves as a brand because of social media?
I love that you say that. One of the main reasons I wrote my book was because I felt like nobody did see themselves as a brand. Real estate agents and politicians, and I mean, like everybody, if you are the face of a business, if you are the product that you are selling, you are a brand. And that absolutely has become bigger in the younger marketplace because of influencer, right? So influencer marketing. Every influencer has to have a very solid brand or they're not going to be able to build a career. And they may be able to build a small following without a brand. They won't be able to build a real following without a brand, but they definitely won't be able to build a business, because what you see online, likes are not money, right? So you have to have the revenue streams built in as well. So you really have to have a business offline and online for something to be, a viable business. So you have to have a brand if you're an influencer for sure.
But okay, got it. But do we feel that population, the younger than I am, my son's population, that because of social media, they're more socialized to accept that branding is important?
Yeah, well,
whereas baby boomers are thinking like, what the heck? I mean, who cares? We might scoff at it.
Yeah, no, I think that they think yes, in the sense of they do think branding is more relevant and more important, but I still think that they don't always know what that entails. Like, what is that brand, right? What does that mean? What is the difference between personal branding and traditional, product-based branding, right?
Right.
But I definitely think that there's more of like, I am a brand. I think that they understand that. I don't think that they know what that quite means.
All right. So another question here. I'm sort of trying to channel others who are not in this conversation, things I've heard. And I wonder if some of the frustration or some of the barrier to going into a branding exercise is that they want privacy. They want to stay authentic and they don't want to open themselves up to the world or to whatever populace that they're going to be connecting with. So therefore, branding feels like a breach of privacy. How do you respond to that? Or authenticity. Like, I don't want to be something that I'm not. And if I brand myself, then they're not going to get the full me. And by the way, I'm not sure I want the full me.
So you can hold back pieces of your narrative to only yourself, right? So I call this the private versus the public narrative. And I have this in my book. There are absolutely intro extroverts that, you know what I mean, that are out there. I don't share everything about my life, and you absolutely should not. And that's where content pillars come into play. That's more of the marketing side, not the branding side. Okay. So, but you can absolutely withhold whatever you feel you need to in order to be able to separate yourself from yourself as a product. There's 2 different sides of the being in that situation, and you have to respect them both. as separate entities. However, the public narrative has to be pulled from the private narrative to make it authentic. So whatever's over here in the public narrative still has to be true. You know what I mean?
Yep. Got it. Very good.
But you definitely do not need to share everything.
Yeah. Well, this is really, I don't know about anybody else, but I'm finding this conversation to be absolutely fascinating.
I can geek out forever.
And it's very provocative. I mean, for me personally, in terms of, making me realize where I have clarity and still confusion with respect to my own brand and what sort of issues and excitement that brings up for me. There's sort of like on one hand, like, oh, that sounds so cool. On the other hand, they're like, oh, I don't know. Like there's that kind of push me, pull you going on. And I'm wondering probably other as well. So Laura, tell people again, how do we connect with you? Talk about your book, anything else that anyone who's listening wants to follow you. Where should they go?
Well, the book is available. So again, it's called From Individual to Empire, and it is available everywhere. It's also ebook, audiobook, hardcover, paperback. And so that you can find anywhere. But
Got it.
the webpage for me is thebrandmgmt.com. So the brand management company is what the company is. And you can get me on most socials at the Laura Bull. And yeah, so just reach out if you have any other questions. Like I said, there's a brand checklist for free on the website that you can just download and work through yourself. And if you do find yourself having those clarity questions, then feel free to email and reach out to us and somebody on the team will get back to you. But yeah.
Okay. So final question. I have one thing I want to ask you.
Oh, okay. I was like, I don't know.
I have a final question for you. Give us one part of your brand narrative, you personally.
Oh, me personally? I think, okay. See, that is funny that you say that. I guess one part for me is the biggest is that I transform personal brands into business brands. And I help with the clarity and confidence for that.
Very good. Love it. Well, thank you so much for your time. And again, happy birthday.
Thank you.
The day this goes live is the day of your birth. So congratulations on that. And I hope you spend it doing some fun things. And thank you for all your great insights.
No problem. Anytime.
Thank you for listening to Leadervation with Dean Newlund. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to learn more about Dean or Mission Facilitators Leadership, go to mfileadership.com. That's mfileadership.com, or check the show notes. Reimagine, facilitate, flourish. Transform your leadership success with Leadervation.